Good morning and welcome to this week's The Upper Deck. I'm Lynn, and with me is the fabulous Ciarra. How you doing, Ciarra?
Good morning, Lynn. I am doing good. I am just ready for Juan Soto to sign his contract and just get this saga over with because the rumors are flying. Other fans are getting a little too excited. And I just need this man to figure out where he's going to be.
Yep, and when it comes to hot stove season, it's really just hot Juan stove season because it's all anybody's really talking about. Starting with LI Yankee King, who won the attendance award this week, and says that Juan Soto and the Yankees are meeting on my birthday. Oh, happy birthday tomorrow, LI Yankee King. It's written in the stars that he'll be a Yankee. Listen, that would be a birthday present for all of us. So let's just say tomorrow is everyone's birthday, and we should get that present. And we got Lori here. Good morning. Hey, FG. And Shayna, Gregory Wayne. Good to see you. Hey, Mr. Barrows. Good to see you. Um, yeah. So let's just get right into the Soda Wars. So we're coming in pretty late in the game on these meetings with Soto, and I'm wondering if strategically, if that was strategy on the Yankees' part or not, or just how the chips fell. But so far, Red Sox, and Jays have met with them. Um, so and I think that the Red Sox, in a strange way, might be the sleeper on this because they have their other big man with Devers signed for years now, and so they might, well, obviously they do have the money to go hard on Soto, and they even played the Dominican Republic card, apparently per the reporting we got, that they had a whole video presentation of all the Red Sox greats who were from the DR. So that was a salty, juicy move on their part. And reportedly he was just really impressed with the presentation. Um, so what do you think about the risk about the Mets, the Red Sox?
I mean, the Red Sox would be just a complete I don't even know. It would be the sleeper pick, like you said. But they have very good points to make. First, let me just say, I think Juan Soto is just going to say that he's impressed by everyone's presentation, no matter
Yeah.
who he meets with. They could probably show him a picture of a dandelion in the middle of a field, and he'd be like, "Oh, that's great," because he's trying to make money, right? So he's going to just be as polite as possible.
That's fair.
Um, but Boston has really good prospects in their farm. They have two of the top 10 right now, and on the MLB pipeline, they have number 3 with Anthony Roman. And then they also have a shortstop at number 7, Marcelo Meyer. So they're trying to basically pitch Soto this team that they can build around him because Soto is still young. He's only 26 years old. So he's probably going to play for another 14 years. And with Devers being in Boston and being an absolute Yankee killer, I don't know, outsider's perspective, that doesn't sound like a bad deal. But I would hate my life if he went there because the other thing that came across my mind, and yes, I'm somehow going to bring Gleyber Torres into this. The Red Sox have wanted Gleyber Torres for years. So now all I can think is, are the Red Sox going to pull the rug out from underneath me and take my favorite besties with them to Boston, and I'm going to have to hate my life because what the actual hell? So I think Boston is very realistic at this point. I don't want it. I mean, I don't think they will spend the money that the Yankees are willing to spend or that Steve Cohen is willing to spend, and that's what it's going to come down to. But they really did just come out of left field and say we can take him from you.
Um, yeah, and so the team that we kind of said, "Oh, you're not our rivals anymore" last season, and we hated other teams more, are suddenly now back into a very sinister position with us. And yeah, I think that was the other big pitch they had to have made, Ciarra, to your point about the prospects is, the old, we want to build our team around you, and give you that ring, that second ring. So Um,
And if
yeah,
you, I
all
mean,
of a sudden, yeah, go
if
ahead.
you, I say if you think about it though, like that, the Yankees are going to be built around Aaron Judge. The Mets are going to be built around Francisco Lindor. The Boston Red Sox have not built themselves around Rafael Devers yet, so they can position themselves to build around Soto. It is very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And all of a sudden, I feel like tomorrow is going to be all the more crucial. I mean, it already was, but um, with all these in the mix, and we still don't know who might jump in last minute. And it's just watching what's going on now. I know that there's some teams that I have in my head that are just like doing that exact same thing, so they could swoop in and overtake all of it. And so, oh, but we just got a lot of people in, and hey, Karen, and hey, Li, you missed it at the top of the show. We shouted out that you're promising that we're going to get Soto because tomorrow's your birthday. So we're holding you to that. So just so you know, we got the receipts now. And Chris Ryan, great to see you. Dev, thanks for being here, and Frank Rivera, good to see you here. And so then comes the Jays. So the Jays are an interesting add in here, and they also have the money to spend because they didn't get to spend it last season in the race for Otani. So that's very interesting, and I think someone else to keep. I don't have enough eyes to keep on these other competitors here. Was the Jays a surprise to you?
No, I feel like the Jays always say they're in on somebody, but like if we're being realistic, who wants to play in Canada? Like nobody wants to go play in Canada. They have Vlad Jr. That is your guy. That will be your guy until the end of time. I just don't see any other big names going there at this point. They're going to have to build from within.
Okay. Yeah, I listen, I'm going to ride with you on that because the less competition the better. And the Mets got there first, as we know, because we talked about that last week. And you could imagine all of the whining and dining, and if the Red Sox did a video presentation, I'm sure that there was a live show put on with paid actors acting things out for them. I don't know, whatever. But the Mets, I'm sure, were the flashiest of the three. Um, so they left feeling hopeful, and they brought people with them. Ciarra, I know you were talking about that. Who'd they bring?
Yeah, so they brought their whole team with that. Well, their whole team, but like their whole management team. So they brought David Stearns, their GM or president of baseball operations. They brought Steve Cohen, obviously, and they brought Carlos Mendoza. Now, the interesting thing about David Stearns is when the Mets brought him in, I believe it was in 2023, he told Mets fans, "Give us 5 years, and we will build this team up, and we will do this, and we will be great." And then he, with Carlos Mendoza as manager, who came from the Yankees last season, look what they did when they shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. Look at the magic that they were able to create in the postseason, the big hits that they were able to get, the moments that they were able to create, things that the Yankees weren't able to do. Juan Soto, I mean, realistically, probably saw those things happen and was wishing that his team was doing the same. So I think the Mets are the more realistic candidate for Soto than the Red Sox at this point. Because the other thing is the rumor has always been that Soto loves New York and that his family likes New York. It just has never been clear which side of New York that he wants to be in. Again, it comes down to the money. But me as a baseball player, if I'm watching what the Mets are doing and just the magic that they're creating and the fun that they're having while my team is like struggling, why wouldn't I want to join that? And we made the World Series with Soto, right? We showed him that we could do it, but we fumbled it. So
Yeah. So Frank has a comment there for you. Um, uh,
it's nothing against Canada. There's just like who in the last 20 years, what big names have wanted to go play in Canada? Like realistically, who has wanted to go play there? And what have they done? that would make somebody want to go play there. And two, I think it was Lori might have said it in the chat. It's going so fast. There are
Yeah.
more taxes in Canada. So
Yep.
if Otani's out here in California deferring money because of taxes, why would people want to go to Canada and pay those taxes? That wasn't even my original point, but that was a great point. So I'm just throwing it in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Barrows is saying Yankees have to offer 700 million.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but quite frankly, I don't know how outrageous that prediction is, given the hats that are in the ring since last week. We knew that this was going to be a bidding war, and everyone's still sitting on money that they're not disclosing at the moment. So I'm not ruling anything out. And once again, LI's double downing, so we get to come to you, LI, if things don't work out our way. So great, you're both 26, and so you have the whole theory. Okay, listen, if that's what works. And by the way, happy birthday, LI. And so I guess it's just wait and see. Are you laughing because I'm speechless?
Yes. I'm laughing because you're speechless, and I'm just laughing at Li because I see his trades on Twitter all day, every day, and the money that he comes up with, and I don't know how he comes up with these things. So I'm just gonna sit back and hope that he's right, that we're gonna sign Soto. But I think 700 million is a lot of money for anybody. I think baseball players in general make a ridiculous amount of money, but that's a whole other conversation. But $700 million, that's a lot of money to put on one player. And guys, I want Soto back. Let me be clear. I don't want people to think that I don't want Soto back. But we have to think about like the future. If we're spending all this money on Soto, where does that leave our future when that all our money is going to be tied up in Cole, Judge, and Soto? That's a lot. We have a huge hole at first base. We have a huge hole in left field. We need to rebuild our bullpen. Second base could be Caleb Durbin, could not be. Like we don't really know. So there's a lot to think about, and unless the Yankees are really willing to go over that luxury tax and spend the money, it's a little scary.
It does. And you failed to mention, so I'll say it for you. It could still be Gleyber Torres at second. That's not off the table yet. So see, but yeah, I mean, it could also and might also be Caleb Durbin. It might be both of them. Because if we're going to talk about 7 million for one, then they could start thinking about getting two for the price of that, and much less money. And FJ, that's a great point. So money is money, but also, I talked a little bit about, the Red Sox, have these prospects, and Ciarra mentioned that the great prospects they have. And that's a good part of the package, because you don't want to walk into a team that, and in this case, very personally, all the holes in the team. And so, he knows all of our dirty laundry from his year with us. He doesn't know that about the other guys that can really just show bright, shiny objects, and win them that way. So you're 100% right, FJ. And so that puts us in a catch-22, right? Because without moving things around and the other players we acquire, we really have very little guarantee statements to make about that with what we have, and what we just gave up. So that is a worry. So
And
yeah, go
the
ahead.
other thing too, Soto knows what it feels like to win a World Series already. He did it at 19 years old. So he obviously wants to do it again. And can the Yankees do that for him if they give him all of the money and don't fill these other holes? That's something that he needs to consider as well. Because he wants all this money, but I'm sure he also wants to win another World Series. Whereas if he goes to Boston, where you're building prospects around him and you're not paying them anything, does he have a better shot of winning? Or if he goes to the Mets, Pete Alonso is going to be gone. So it's a very young team in New York, the other side of New York as well. So is it a better shot for him to win a World Series there? Because there's more money to spend on him, and then they're going to build that young team around him, and it would be him and Lindor and the Mets. But my point is, the Yankees have an aging team, and we have a lot of holes to fill.
That's right. That's right. And we have point counterpoint, as we always seem to have about Dominguez. Frank saying that he's not sold on Dominguez yet. And for me, it my opinion remains the same when we were when we were having the Doogie Dominguez debate. If you could put them together into one player, we'd be so solid and unbeatable. But we don't, and so we have Dominguez at the plate where we need him, but we don't have him in left field the way we need. And I was Ciarra and I were talking a bit before we jumped on. To me, left field is, if you're gonna like think about the trickiest, so to speak, part of the outfield, I think it's left field. It tends to be the wonkiest in dimensions and weird. I'm thinking of some stadiums where there were walls where there usually aren't walls, and junctures like
Orioles.
this, and yeah, exactly. You need to be, able to adjust in all these different situations in your position. And that level of, and I think that comes with experience, as well as expertise. And so, I'm more inclined to want somebody more seasoned in that position. And we know it's not Dominguez's natural position. And we know that Judge is our center fielder unless we lose Soto. And we're not going to lose Soto. So where does that leave us? And
Yeah,
so,
and to your point, so Judge is our center fielder right now.
yeah.
We have a lot of people playing out of position, but Judge has actually proven to be a very good center fielder. And if Soto comes back, Soto's staying in right field. So that leaves only left field for Jason Dominguez. And if he can't field the ball out there, he can't be our left fielder. Now, it's a different conversation if Soto leaves, then Judge probably does move back to right field. But we also still have Trent Grisham, who's going to be a center fielder, and obviously he's our fourth outfielder, so it's not like he's our everyday guy, but that still leaves again left field. Left field is the hole. We have the solution for center and right field, whether Soto's there or not. So
Mm-hmm.
left field is that bigger gap. And to everyone's point in the chat, it is probably the hardest position in the outfield to play. And while Doogie struggled horribly behind the plate this season, and it just seems he's just declined every year since he's come to the majors for some reason, you can't deny the effect that we saw in left field with him. After Brett Gardner left, that left field position and the way that it rotated and just the joke that it was over the past few years, I have that image of Aaron Hicks like pouting at the wall burned in my head forever. I don't want that ever again. So if we're going to put Dominguez in the outfield, he needs to be ready. And I'm sorry, I know that hurts a lot of Yankees fans' feelings because everyone's so high on Dominguez right now, but he has to earn it and he has to prove it. So if he's going to be the left fielder in spring training, he needs to start in left field. He doesn't need to play center field in spring training or in the minors if he's not on our opening day roster. He needs to start playing left field now, and then he'll be ready. Because if he can't catch a routine fly ball, we saw what it does to us in the World Series. It kills us. And obviously that was Judge, but my point is, if we can't do the fundamentals, we can't
Right.
win anything.
That's right. Yep. All of that, and I'll double down on it. So Li, okay, good. You're always good for the stirring up and gaslighting. No, we can't stop about that, is what Lynn is going to say. So want to talk about somebody playing out of position? That's Jazz Chisholm, and Jazz Chisholm, natural second baseman, and we'll be talking about that a lot, I'm sure, when we're moving these puzzle pieces down as things develop over this off season. But you can't tell me. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't listen. That he was not pretty damn solid at third base. Um, and if you're thinking in your head about comparing Birdie and Jazz, I don't think that comparison will prove your case. I was very confident with Chisholm pretty soon after he arrived, because he translated over. He translated his baseball IQ, adjusted it into that position, and no, I think that I'll be perfectly comfortable. Of all the holes that Ciarra just listed that we need to address, third base is so far down on the list, and there's really no need to even examine it all that much, because Chisholm on both sides of his role has been a really good get for this team. So let's think about our money and where to spend it and how much and what's the wisest.
And
And
I
Laura,
think
go ahead.
I was saying, and I think people forget when Jazz came to us from the Marlins, he wasn't playing second base anymore. He had been playing center field for a few years at that point. So it wasn't like he was just moving from second to third. He actually went from second to center field to third. So, and besides Jazz, we still have Birdie, who I always forget is on our team because he's just old and beaten up and broken. And
Right.
we still have Waldo, who has really emerged, in my opinion. I don't think the kid gets enough credit. And guess what, guys? He's not an everyday player, but guess who we're still stuck with? DJ freaking LeMahieu and his rotting, aging foot. So, third base is the least of my concerns at this point.
Right. Yep. And Li, just so you know, um,
That
Pinstripe
was me.
Chronicles on our show is Ciarra. So I'm
And
not gonna have.
you won't win the Stanton fight with me, Li, because he carried us through the entire playoffs this season, and we wouldn't have been in the World Series without Stanton. So let's be realistic here. I know he's aging. I know his hamstrings hurt all the time. I know he's not, a position player. But realistically, we don't make the World Series without Gleyber Torres and without Stanton. And I think Yankees fans, well, not all Yankees fans, but LI, you need to realize that because that was a huge part of our success in the playoff push.
Yep.
And just until the point being made right there, his salary goes down, and I'm pretty sure it continues to go down.
Yep.
So move on. No Stanton slander allowed.
That's right. Thank you, Lori. No, no, no. We're not having that. So and he earned his money, and he earned all of those dollars. It was of value to us in the postseason. Didn't work out well, but that had nothing to do with Stanton. We got as far as we got because of Stanton. We got in the postseason because of Stanton, if you want to be honest about things. Because you saw, I think, I don't have the numbers, but I think that this was his most productive season, regular season that we've seen.
If he hadn't gone down in June,
Mm-hmm.
he would have been comeback player of the year. Also, if you look at when he went down in June and when the Yankee struggle started in June, you can't tell me that's not a correlation. He went down, the Yankees suffered for a month. Those two things, they're tied together.
No, 100%. So the question remains unanswered about left field. And so when you're talking about the possibilities in the free agency, I'm not really seeing any of the free agents that are left fielders that we would need to go all out on. So do we think about who we have, what prospects we have, and if they could be elevated, faster? I mean, I'm sure it's guaranteed that Spencer Jones will be invited up for the preseason stuff, but he's our number one, number two prospect after Dominguez, right? So maybe he should be part of the conversation. Um, but left field is going to be, I guess, left field isn't considered the priority at the moment. But once this Soto noise starts to die down, it's going to be left field and first base, I would hope. And which is equally important. I think is kind of apples and oranges, but they're both needs. And that's
Yeah,
not slander against Dominguez, but
I'm actually going to throw out a free agency name for left field that I haven't seen anybody talk about for the Yankees. And if anyone has, feel free to correct me. I know you will anyway. Jesse Winker is going to be a free agent from the Mets. And he was pretty useful for them in that second half of the season and in the playoffs. And then there's also Jerks and Profar. So if we can get either one of them on a cheap deal, I think that's a better option. And then you let Dominguez and Spencer Jones start off in the minors and battle it out for who's going to come up during the season. Because if either one of them are going to play left field, they need to start playing it now.
right.
We haven't seen Spencer Jones, in the majors yet. He's also very high on a lot of Yankees fans' totem pole. The only thing that worries me about him still is that strikeout rate, but Judge was very similar in the minors, so I guess that's something that could adjust as time goes on, because nobody would have known that Judge would be Judge at this point. But I think left field, I think Jesse Winker and Jerkson Profile are two guys we can go after. I say Teoscar in the chat, but I think he's gonna want too much money. He just won a World Series
Right.
on a 1-year prove it deal, and he was pretty good for the Dodgers.
And isn't he a little bit up in age compared to the others?
I think
Hernandez? I could be wrong.
I think Teoscar might be a little in the middle. He
Okay.
is. How old are you, Teoscar? He's
He's not as old
32.
as I am. How old?
32. He's older than I thought.
Okay, but in the scheme of things, um, he's not.
Profar's 31, and Jesse
Okay.
Winker, I want to say, is 30 something to 31. So they're all around the same age.
Um, but the Yankee fans don't influence the decisions. We're just here spreading our opinions. So if he gets that position, it's got to be earned.
Ella, you also have to understand there are more than one opinion in the Yankees universe. Like I've always said that Dominguez isn't ready to play every day for the Yankees. Like it didn't make sense. Last season, he was coming off an injury. And then they tried to rush him back and he got injured again, which maybe the two don't correlate, maybe they do, but we tried to rush him up to the majors last season and it hurt him. And then when his time finally came around, we didn't need him and it didn't make sense for him to come up and play because there wasn't a path for him to play every day. And now moving forward in 2025, if he can't play left field, there is no path for him to play every day because unless Soto walks, Judge is not leaving center field. Until the World Series, Judge hadn't made a single error in center field. Okay. And he looks pretty damn good out there. Like for a big guy, he moves. And if we keep Soto, Judge has to stay in center because where else would he go? You have to think before you speak, LA.
Yeah. and Egyptian. Yeah, well, an Egyptian, I'd play pickleball. I'd be a pickleball fan if this happens. Not going to happen. I'm pretty confident about that. I don't think I'm standing alone on that either. And so let me just ask a question. A name we haven't talked about in a while is, why are we not talking about Peraza?
I think the Yankees broke Peraza and they have no faith left in Peraza. I truly believe when they called him up in 2024, it was to try to showcase him one last time to maybe get some trade value out of him. But the Yankees are really good at breaking kids and their mentality. They're not good at developing them. And I'm sorry if that hurts anyone's feelings, but that's the truth. We need better development in our farm system. Because when they get to the majors, it's no longer developmental, right? When they get to the majors, they need to be able to be coached and they need to be able to play their positions well. But in the minors, they need to be developed and they need to figure out certain things that maybe they don't figure out in college and high school because that's what the minors are for. And for whatever reason, the Yankees are not good at that. Peraza hasn't shown us that he can be our everyday major league player, and I blame the Yankees for that. I don't blame Peraza.
Yeah. No.
So I think he's a good trade option this season for us, but I don't see him being an everyday player. I don't even see him being on the roster, to be honest.
Right. Do you see him getting the invite to come up for preseason?
For yeah, I see him coming to spring training with Vivas and Durbin and maybe trying to battle it out in Waldo, but I just don't see him moving forward with the Yankee system at this point.
Okay. Yep. And Lou's agreeing, and so do I, that he would be a good part of a trade package. And the good news is they can't play with his head anymore because he's out of options. So, this will be do or die. And I would think, and I would hope that they would give another shot to him. At risk of playing with his head a little bit more. I would really like him to be. I want him to be a Cinderella story because we all saw the potential in him, and it slowly faded away. Yeah, and Karen's concurring. You're absolutely right. It just broke him. And he's out of options because of all the times they just like took him up and either didn't utilize him or just spit him back out. And so um it's just a sad story. So
I mean,
and,
look what the Yankees did to Ron Marinaccio, right? He was on our roster. And every time they needed space, it was up and down, even though he was clearly one of our best relief pitchers. So sometimes the Yankees just hurt themselves when they're trying to make decisions. And they just, I don't know, man. Somebody needs to go in and teach them how to run a front office or something because they just frustrate the hell out of me sometimes.
yeah. And FJ's saying that he doubts Durbin is moving for some good game. Right. I mean, we don't have a lot of you know, proven play time to go on in terms of, coming up. But you know what? Um, bring them up and, don't up and down him the way they did Peraza, but he's somebody that's a good candidate to try out in the low leverage kind of games. And I think he is a rising star. I mean, hell, Passett still has him pinned to the top of his Twitter page. About the Yankees. The Yankees better not disregard this kid. And that was back when second base wasn't at play. So so let's talk since Marinaccio came up, let's talk about the pen. So the only thing we're secure about is that we have Luke Weaver back, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know there are others that are bringing value, but we need somebody, close to Weaver's level. And the holes were left behind. If and I'll do this, holes were left behind with Holmes being gone and etc. But um and right now, the only name I could think of, and don't throw tomatoes at me for it, is Tanner Scott. In terms of the free agencies, and yeah, I'm laughing when I say it too. But and he's 30, but he's going to be a lot of money. He's going to be around 68 million. So, and he's also coming off of injuries, which isn't great. I believe he's coming off of injuries. But and I might be confusing, and this might be a Lynn thing. So don't hold me to that. Um, but he did have a 1.75 ERA. So he had a good, and that's just going from the last season. But, um, oh,
Yeah,
and great.
so
Oh, and he's a lefty, by the way. Oh, and
and he
yeah.
has swing and miss stuff. Also, I confused you last week with the injury stuff because my sick brain, I was mixing up Tanner Scott and Mason Miller because
Ah,
things happen. But no, Tanner Scott, I'm actually on board. I think that's a great option if we have the money to spend. I think Luke Weaver is a lock in as our closer, that little psychopath, like no one can take his place at this point. And he's
absolutely.
so cheap. Like he's so cheap. But the rest of the bullpen, it's huge question marks. Tim Hill's a free agent. I think the Yankees should bring him back on a cheap deal. Personally, I think he proved
Oh,
himself.
yes.
I'm so mad about Ron Marinaccio. I am so mad about it. Could you imagine having the lowest ERA in the bullpen and then going from the Yankees to the freaking White Sox at the end of the season? Like, I would just be distraught. Like, I feel like Ron Marinaccio had something on Cashman and they just had to get rid of him. Like, it's just such a weird scenario.
It
But
is.
neither here nor there, I guess, because it doesn't matter at this point. Canely had like some weird cryptic message on Discord thanking the fans. So I don't know if he just knows he's not coming back or if he's going to retire because he's mid 30s at this point. But he somehow always finds his way back to us. So I'm curious to see what happens there. But we need to plug some holes. I obviously biggest advocate for Cody Poteet being in the bullpen.
Hmm.
We saw him as a starter, but I think
Hmm.
he would be great for our bullpen. And outside of that, I don't know if we have any prospects who would be ready to come up because we traded our biggest one, LA's favorite guy, to the Cubs last season, and I don't know who else we have, to be honest.
Yeah. And so And really, when you think about how burnt the pen got in the postseason, um, we've I'm worried for Weaver that he seems to be the only solid late in the game person. And Marinaccio is one of the holes, that would have would have helped out there. And yeah, we have Hill. We have Cousins still. So right.
I mean,
But
we have Brock Selvage in Double A. I guess we have to see what he can do in Triple A first, but
right.
uh,
Yeah, so he's probably another one we'll see during spring training. But I really feel like having somebody, but he needs Weaver needs a setup guy, and I
mhm.
don't see that setup guy. And is 68 million a shit ton to pay for a setup guy? Yeah, but we're getting on the cheap for Weaver.
I think
And
I think Cole or not Cole. Oh my God, not Cole. Clay Holmes could have been that perfect setup guy if
yeah,
he wasn't if he wasn't looking for so much money. Now they didn't give him the QO. It doesn't mean they can't resign him. I just don't know if the Yankees will at this point because I'm sure Clay Holmes is looking for some money and he's just kind of worn out his welcome. I think with the Yankees.
yeah. And Karen and NFJ are reminding me not to forget Mark Leiter.
I wrote him
Um,
off a long time ago, guys.
okay, but he, he did come through in the postseason. He did have some good moments there, but he started to make my scale tilt a little bit. Um, and we're not going to get rid of him with knowing we're not knowing what else we're going to be able to get.
Well, we also have to think we have a 6-man rotation going into spring training. Are we going to run with that or are we going to have Schmidt or Cortez or Heel go to the pen? Schmidt has the experience, so he can be a long relief guy, but that would kind of suck for him because I feel like he's earned his spot as a starter at this point. Um, but Cortez is the veteran of the group, and Heel is just he's a starter. He's not meant to be in the pen. So, but also, what the hell is going on with Stroman? What are they going to
Yeah,
do with he's going to be on the roster, but what are they going to do with him?
right. And you got to put fairness aside, because we could say, yeah, Nestor's the veteran, but that doesn't mean he deserves the slot over Schmidt in the starting rotation.
Mm-mm.
But look at that rotation. That rotation has like gusts of wind blowing through it. So, um, to me, Schmidt needs to stay in the starting rotation. I wish that they had remembered that Stroman was alive and breathing in the postseason, and they finally added him to the team, and didn't use him. So we don't know how he would have done in the reliever spot. But you know what? He's a middle pitcher. So let's put Stroman in the pen. Let's think about, it might come to Nestor also being in the pen. I don't know. But, so we have Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, and potentially Nestor. But, we also have Will Warren, who deserves a discussion. Um, and so, and you know what? It's good because Ciarra and I agree most of the time. So I like that face from Ciarra. Um, so Will Warren, I think we need to keep an eye on and give him some opportunities as well. And wherever role we would bring him up in, pen or starter. I don't see us spending the money on acquiring a new pitcher. I mean, are we going to spend the money on Burns?
No.
Um, we're absolutely not. He's the number 2 free agent. So right after he's going to be watching Soto, um, I'm going to bet he's a Boris client. Because virtually all the greats are. He has the majority of the free agents under his contract. I'm
Yeah,
assuming
he's a Boris guy.
yeah, yeah. So, that's going to be the driver, with him being right behind Soto in free agency. So yeah, we can't shoot high on the starting pitcher fund. We're spending
No,
too much money there as it is.
Yeah, we can't. We already have all this money invested in Garrett Cole, who tried to pull, a little drama queen act and get more money, which I think if they would have caved and gave him more money, that would have hurt us in the long run getting Soto. We have freaking Rodon, who, in my opinion, still hasn't earned the money that we're giving him. He was a little better in the second half of the season, but none of our starters were very good when it came to the postseason slash World Series. Like, they didn't give us the length that we needed, in my opinion. But that's a discussion for another time. But because we have six starters right now and we're spending so much money on the one and two, there's
Mm-hmm.
no room for another starting pitcher. And I think it was Gregory Wayne who made the point. Maybe a six-man rotation is what the Yankees need because our pitchers always get injured. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just us anymore. The MLB is experiencing a pitching injury epidemic, and that's why it's also scary to spend the type of money that Corbin Burns is looking for. He's looking for $300 million, and he's a Boris client, so he will hold out. We saw it with Blake Snell. Blake Snell, he did not even pitch in the beginning of the season. He held out for as long as possible, playing his little video games on Twitch. So
Yes.
we know what Boris is capable of, and I just think
Right.
that's a lot of money for a starting pitcher.
Plus, there's no way that the Orioles aren't going to do what they need to do to keep him. So, right?
I don't know. I don't think the Orioles want to spend the money on him. The Orioles like their young guys and they like developing prospects. So they do need that big name in the rotation though, because they can only get so far with their young guys they've shown in the past few seasons. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And Li Yankee reminded me about Roki Sasaki, who we talked at length about last week.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean
Isn't
that's a possibility, but I don't think that's being thought of much until we see what happens with the top free agents.
I don't think I don't. If we were to land Roki Sasaki, I think that that's a sleeper pick for us. I could see Roki. I really don't think he's going to the Dodgers. I think that that's too easy of an answer, but I could see him going to the Cubs or the Mets personally. I gave all my reasons last week for why I think he would go to the
Yeah.
Cubs and why he would fit in, but I think the Mets are the second option for him. I don't think the Yankees are really even on his radar at this point.
Okay. And Gregory's reminding us about Pavetta, Lawrence, and Eunice and Montas.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So I mean, to be seen, but there's not going to be much talk about the starting pitching. I think until other issues are solved. But the pen, to me, just really
We
remains.
we did sign a right-handed pitcher to a minor league deal in the last few days. So
Oh, tell
uh,
us about that.
Jordani Ventura, he's been with the Mets his entire minor league career, I think from 2019 on. The only thing is, so he's 24, so he's pretty young. He has a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. The only thing is, he was injured. He did get injured in 2024. So even though he had a 2.96 ERA, he had 55 strikeouts, so he struck out 31% of the batters he faced, but that was only through 48.2 innings because he was injured. I guess the bright side of that is he struck out more than one batter per inning, I guess if you average it out, but the injuries, it's always injuries for us. That makes me nervous. If he can stay healthy, I could see that being a really good pickup for the Yankees just because he's a swing and miss pitcher. And that's what we need right now in the bullpen. So
Yeah, it makes me nervous that he's not even close. I mean, he's in double A and
mhm.
that he's already coming with the injuries at 24 years old is a big red flag for me. So I'm not sure how we're going to benefit with it. I'm open. I don't know what kind of injuries he had, but and for how long. But I'd like to see them, go, both directions. Acquire a good minor league contract that is like AAA quality to help build up our options. But yeah, so that was really that was the only news in terms of newcomers who left,
So we traded outfielder Taylor Trammell to the Astros for some cash money. My favorite player. We're trying to bring in more money. We're trying to bring in more money so we can keep Juan Soto on the Yankees. And we sent Duke Ellis, Mr. Grey's Anatomy himself, straight out back to Double A. So basically, he cleared all wires. Nobody can claim him. He's ours in the minor league, but he's not on our major league roster. So congratulations for your one stolen base. Maybe we'll see you next year. Maybe we won't.
Great. And now that we have cash money, we could have everyone on our wish list.
Exactly.
So I welcome cash money to the Yankees. Yeah, and Duke Ellis, we hardly knew ye. We did see you run real fast a couple of times. That was nice.
Thanks for that.
So then, just in the other news, so there was a big award week this week for the Yankees. So I'm just going to give a mention and nod to them. So the team of Judge and Soto lead the pack here. So they made the AL-MLB first team. So, and then in addition, they also both won the AL Silver Slugger Award. So Judge on his own, standing in the light for the AL Hank Aaron Award winner. I'm wondering if anyone is surprised by that, and knowing that certainly. Well, I guess never mind. I'm not going to say it out loud. Let me move on to. Yeah, I'm not going to get this chat going. Yankees offense won the AL Offensive Team of the Year Slugger Award, Silver Slugger Award, and I do want to ask that question here about the team. How did we become the offensive team of the year to get this Silver Slugger award? On what basis?
Because we had a lot of home runs.
And because you certainly didn't see it in consistency in day to day. So I was a little bit surprised that, but there you have it. And you had the quick answer, and I'm not surprised at that. And then we have two of our guys fighting for Rookie of the Year, because Wells is now a finalist, in addition to Luis Gil, who I think we already mentioned, is a finalist. So, in your mind, Ciarra, who do you think would deserve it more?
That's hard. So I said last week that Luis Gil kind of surprised me because his control issues, I think, are they're hard to miss. Austin Wells, I would have gave it to Austin Wells right up into the playoffs. He killed me in the playoffs, but I guess at this point I would say Austin Wells. Once he got consistent playing time and the Yankees figured out Jose Trevino is not it for us, he was locked in until playoff time. So,
yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. I think I'm wondering what the chat feels. Well, Wells or Heel, guys. Who do you think, if either of them were to win, who would deserve it? So just interested, put it up in the chat. And yeah, Karen is saying Wells because of the regular season. Yep. And I saw up above that Li also said Wells. Gregory's saying Heel. So I think on a broad basis, and what we saw, and to be fair, we saw Wells so much more than we saw Heel.
mhm.
But that's also a sound reason for choosing Wells. We really haven't seen all that much of Heel, and to your point, Ciarra, he still has some issues. He's still growing. And so he's new to the big show. So yeah, I think Wells overwhelmingly would be the favorite. I wonder who their competition would be for that in other teams.
I haven't looked
Anyone
at the
know of
awards.
another? Huh?
I haven't looked at the awards.
Yeah. I don't even know who else would have been nominated. And so I saw up above, people are still talking about first base, which I know we didn't resolve. and so I wanted to find it because it was a good comment. Um, so it, I guess my question is, do we work with what we have at first base? Do we like do the development thing in the minors and give Rice another chance and have him start and at least start off the season with the Rice Cabrera combo that we were playing with for a while, that in my mind, was a good way to fill Rizzo's absence. Or do we really go out and get from somewhere else the first baseman? I think that question's still hanging in the wind.
It's not an easy question to answer because you could have Rumfield and Rice battle it out in spring training and throw Waldo in the mix. Waldo is the ultimate utility guy. So honestly, as long as he's on the roster, I don't really care because he could fill in any hole in the infield, right? And I think that he has proven himself. You could
Right.
have Rice and Rumfield battle it out in spring training, or you can go out and get somebody on a 1-year deal. Christian Walker is available. He just won his 3rd consecutive Gold Glove.
Right.
Santana's available, but he's kind of old, and that makes me nervous. Even if it's just for 1 year. As bad as Rizzo was the last 2 seasons because of injury, and I'm so sick and tired of seeing the disrespect of Anthony Rizzo, it is hard to replace that type of Gold Glove at first base. And it's hard when Rizzo was healthy, his offensive production, it was unmatched. It's hard to replace that. So that's why I think that you need to go out and get somebody like a Christian Walker, even if it's just for 1 year.
Right.
And then in 2026 or 2025, no, 2026, I forget what year we're in right now. In 2026, when Murakami can be signed to a big league deal in the US, go after Murakami.
Right.
But I
And
don't think the young guys in our system are our answer right now. Sorry.
okay. I think that's fair. And I think the proviso of a 1-year deal for Walker and also for Santana, I could live with. Santana, he's 38, but this is the season where he got his first Gold Glove, and so he's coming off a particularly stellar season. We're not going to get the bat production. And remember, we really wanted both sides of that for the first base. So because we just didn't get that with Rizzo, and that's not because of who Rizzo is as a player, as we all know. The other name I am going to toss out is Paul Goldschmidt. Also maybe for a 1-year deal. So because he certainly, when you compare Walker and Santana, has better numbers in terms of the bat. So, he batted this last season 245, 22 home runs, but 65 RBIs, and so yeah, and I'm just wondering if he would be worth the deal.
I think he would be like my very last option. I don't know. He's aging in my opinion, and
Yeah,
I think
Walker's the only one that isn't of everyone we discussed. Yeah.
yeah. So I think Christian Walker is our best option right now. And like I said, you don't have to sign him to a massive deal. Give him a 1-year deal. Even if let's do a 1-year prove it deal, right? 2026 rolls around. We're shopping Murakami, right? If we don't win Murakami in that battle, then we look and say, all right, well, what did Christian Walker do for us in 2025? Is he worth re-signing? Or at that point, what have Rumfield and Rice done in AAA? And who is the one that should now be given the opportunity?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the question that's going to be continuing. Um, so, anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to put out there, Ciarra?
Yeah, just one quick thing. So I'm sure everyone saw the Rays are going to be paying the Yankees $15 million to use George Steinbrenner Field all of 2025. That's $15 million that could go to Juan Soto. I'm just saying.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Is there extra because they get to use the Yankees clubhouse? Because I heard that was it.
Um, the only thing I've read for sure so far is 15 million. Now, the Steinbrenner family and Cashman, they could become greedy little slumlords and get more money. But that's free money that can go straight to Juan Soto. So, Juan, if you're listening, I have $15 million for you right now. Like, it's
Yeah,
yours. You don't got to do
yeah.
anything.
Operators are standing by. Call now. Oh, maybe they'll mention that tomorrow. um, so it's been a long time since we've had this part of the show, but and this isn't exactly the recent news. It's about a week and a half old by now. But I did want to call out that there is now officially a women's pro baseball league. Um, Now, of course, we always need an acronym in our lives. So the WPBL has formed, and it's slated to begin in the summer of 2026, starting with about 6 teams throughout the country. And it will be the first professional women's baseball league in the country, as I'm sure we know. So they're really pulling together from all of the great women players that we've seen. For those of us that follow women in baseball, from the World Cup alone, the American team for the World Cup has gone far for several seasons, and there are several stars from there that I've mentioned on previous shows, like Olivia Picardo, for example. And if you got to see the documentary that MLB played, See Her, Be Her, which I'm hoping they'll replay, you'll learn so much more about what these women are doing in the other international leagues. So this was really great news. And one of the co-founders was Justine Siegel. And if that name sounds familiar to you, she broke some barriers starting back in, I think, like 2009. 2009, when she became the first woman to coach a professional men's baseball team. And then she also was the first to coach pitching during batting practice for the Cleveland Guardians several years ago. So, and she runs a website called Baseball for All. Follow Baseball for All on Twitter. Never going to call it X. And it's chock full of all of the news in women in baseball. So, and they have two advisors that are prominent names. They have legendary baseball pitcher Ayamo Sato and World Series winning manager Cito Gaston, who are serving as their special advisors. So these guys mean business. And I think there's more to come very shortly on details, but it's womensprobaseballleague.com. And I am just very excited to see, more and more coming to solidify women's place in the game. And by the way, they're also starting summer camps for college students. So they're already eyeing prospects and building up, capacity where some good things are happening, and just really happy about it. Wanted to share.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. So with that, and no any final words before we really do go?
No, I just thank you for everyone in the chat today. I love interacting with the chat every Sunday. I love that we can all have a difference in opinion and still come together and discuss all things, Yankees baseball, off-season baseball. Um, if we all agreed on the same thing all the time, there would be nothing to talk about, and that would just be boring. So I really do love interacting with everybody.
Yes, I'll ditto that to the max. And face it, Juan Soto is going to be a redundant topic because it's all everyone's talking about. But we really appreciate that you're all bringing fresh perspectives, and really it's a developing story. So everyone's covering it, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. We have the receipt on you, Li. So all eyes on you with your guarantee. But we'll see what the rumor mill looks like next week after that meeting is done, and if any other teams quickly follow the Yankees. I think that's what I'm keeping my quickest eye on, my sharpest eye on, because I don't think we're done. I think other people are going to pounce, and they're waiting to see how things go so far with the other team. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And the guys of Pinstripe Chronicles. They're every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. And you'll see me and Ciarra right here next week on the upper deck. As always, you'll have a reserved seat with us. So thank you, and let's get Soto.